Hey, y'all. Well, welcome to my first Fireside chat for 2025. I used to do Fireside chats a couple of years ago, just when I wanted to holler at people, but it's been a while. But what I want my Fireside chats to be is like me talking to the local people who live here. People who, some of you I know, some of you I just know you by sight or by name, but we haven't had really interaction except for maybe in my business when I had my business in the 90s. Because most of the people that live in Noxubee County did come into my store. And even if you didn't buy from me, you did speak to me. But I don't remember everybody. So I'm talking to y'all. And I know a lot of y'all wondered why I'm even here. Most of the people that were adults at the time that I moved here in 1993, they know that I came to take care of my mother so that my mother could come back home to to live around her kinfolks. My father had just recently passed away from cancer. It was a sudden thing. We had no idea. He had been sick with what we thought was a kidney infection, and he had been back and forth to the doctor. He was so bad off he had to sleep what little bit he could in a lift chair because he couldn't get comfortable. So after he'd been sick about a week, him and my brother went back to the doctor's office where his blood pressure bottomed out in the doctor's office. They sent him by emergency vehicle to the hospital, and that's where we got a call from. They thought it was something to do with his gallbladder, but by the time my mother and I got there, they knew it was cancer. It was cancer in his kidneys and in his liver. And it was like so far gone they could not do anything. This was on Friday, and he died 2 days later. He almost immediately went into a coma. And even before that, he didn't know who anybody was because they had to give him so much pain medicine. So this was like an emergency thing. So my mother was like beside herself. And she had just lost her baby sister that spring, Betty Lewis. And it was really hard on her. And so she said, I would like to go back to Mississippi. I came here in 1943, and this is 1993. It's been 50 years, and I want to go home. Will you go with me? Well, the strange thing was, I had, the first of the year, I had finally gotten approved in Salisbury, North Carolina, to renovate one of the historical homes that was covered by their historical foundation. And I had been wanting to do that for years. It was a gorgeous 2-story house, and I got it really, really cheap and had just moved into it and had started my renovations when my Aunt Betty Cooper Rutledge was killed in a car wreck. That was my cousin Miss Jean's mother. And she and I were very, very close. We had always been close, but she was my mother's baby sister. And when she and her husband, her first husband, separated, and she moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I lived with my then first husband. And we got to be really close during the time that she lived there before she decided to go back to Mississippi. So all the time after that, we were extremely close. She had been to visit us Thanksgiving of the year before and come back and spent Christmas with us, her and her husband. And then she was killed right after Mother's Day. So it was just like, it done me really bad. I was so close to her that all my desire to do what I wanted to do to that house, because she and I had discussed it, we had talked a lot about it, and she was looking forward to coming and visiting with me and, give me some reason to go on. That's the kind of relationship we had. And after she passed away, I lost all that desire. So I had decided to move out of that house, to let it go back to the owners, and I had an auction, my first auction, and what few family pieces I had, I moved into my parents' basement. So that's where I was staying when my father got sick and passed away. So my mother and I felt like it was some kind of an omen that had taken place, and I had gotten myself in a situation where I was available to be with her. Otherwise, my life would have been somewhere else doing other things, and I wouldn't have had the ability to just drop things and come back to Mississippi with her. But because I was in that situation, that had happened, and I had everything that I still owned at her house. And when she said that, I said, let's do it. But I did not want to come to Noxubee County. I wanted to go to either West Point or Starksville because I loved both of those towns. But she said, if I can't be in Macon, where she had a sister and well, she had two sisters that were still living and their kids, and then she had a brother that lived in Brooksville and a brother that lived in Sugarlock. No, really, it was Golston area. And so she didn't want to be in Starksville or West Point. So I said, okay, we'll do Macon. So I was there for a reason. I wasn't there to try to take anything from any of you people. I didn't want to be here, but I did that for my mama. And during that time is when I started doing our family history. I started doing research. It took me 7 years, but this was before the internet. This was when you had to go to libraries that did genealogy, and they could get microfilm and things sent from other libraries that had records and things that you were looking for. So I did 7 years worth of that. And during that time, I was the person that was the director of our family reunion for both the Vernon and the Hancock family. So it's not like I was just sitting somewhere behind the scenes taking care of someone with my mouth shut. No. I had been living as a person, not as a freak, but as a person, a real human being, a woman. So when I came back here, I just continued to live the way I was. I didn't ever sit back and say, oh, I keep my mouth shut because I'm really a man. No, I never thought about that. If you'd have had my mama, You would never have thought that way. No. My mama tried to keep me from doing something until I had it done. And then after that, she said, you've had it done. You go the fuck on. You don't let anybody put you down. Because for one thing, you look like a woman. For another thing, you act like a woman. And you're a beautiful woman. So don't ever let anybody, especially some of these ugly cows, try to put you down. Because jealousy can be an evil creature. Especially when you've got a genetic born female who's extremely unattractive. And the only thing they've got going for them is family money and land. That's the only thing they have. That's the only thing they ever had. But they want to put that against you because you're nothing but a man. Okay, I'm a man. But when I was young, I was one beautiful man. And I had a good life. I didn't come back here because I had nowhere else to go. I came here for my mama. And after you stay somewhere for so long, it becomes home. Of course, this was a place that I came on vacation every year during the week of the 4th, every year, all of my life. This was where my mama's people was. And sometimes we'd take a vacation during the wintertime, be here at Christmas time or something. But we always came during the 4th. So this was home. And of course, I did go to school down here for my graduation year, just 1 year. But you know why we did that? Because I ran away from home when I was 13, dressed as a girl, because I was going to be a woman. But I was only 13. But being on a farm, raising on a farm, I knew how to drive a vehicle. And when I decided I wanted to be a gal, I took the money that I had made raising calves, and I was going to start my life as a woman. So I got in my mama's Volkswagen, and I drove 75 miles away to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I stayed 3 days. I stayed in a motel. Well, back then in the late 60s, you didn't have to show ID or anything. No. You just gave them a name and paid your money and went on. And I did that for 3 days. Went to the movies, went shopping. I did all kinds of things as a gal, and I loved it. But I was a 13-year-old gal, and after 3 days, I got homesick. So what did I do? I drove my 13-year-old butt back home, 75 miles on the interstate. Was in a world of shit. Had to go to psychiatrists and everything, and everybody in the school was making fun of me because they all knew what I'd done. They thought I'd been kidnapped at first, and the police had come to school and questioned everybody. But they knew I'd went dressed as a girl. Because the lady at the end of the road thought it was my mama. Because I had on my mama's wig and everything. So it was a humiliation there. So the reason we moved to Mississippi so that I could try to graduate and not feel like all that was still on me. But then when we got there, we realized everybody done been told. Actually, the only people would have known it was family. But family run their mouth. So by the time we got here, everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. They'd all told it. That was something to tell, you know. Oh, he dressed up like a girl, and he drove 75 miles away. Can you believe that? Something wrong with that boy. So, yeah, that's the reason I was here then. But then I was planning on going to New Orleans after I graduated from high school. And I had the help of the Mississippi Gay Alliance in Starkville, North Carolina. I mean, there was this late night TV show that would come on, and they would have these different people talking about different things. Well, one night, just way late on Saturday night or Friday night or something, they had two people that was from the Mississippi Gay Alliance talking on TV. I thought, so I contacted them folks, and they was going to help me. But then somebody spilled the beans, and my family drugged me back to North Carolina. So I had to wait till I was 18. I wasn't at 17 when I graduated. As soon as I was 18, I left home. So, but whenever I left here to get married to that Arab, well, I didn't plan to bring no Muslim back to Knoxville County, Mississippi. I had no plans for that. When I went, I had no plans of ever coming back. No, I didn't have an auction. I was trying to sell my property, and then I would have never come back. But then they started kidnapping those people in Iraq and beheading them and all that kind of stuff, so I got scared. But I offered to go anywhere else in the world other than coming back to Mississippi. I didn't want to. But him, being a Muslim, couldn't go anywhere else. They would not allow them to go to any other Muslim country. He would have to be an American citizen first. I mean, he was married to an American citizen, but that did not mean he was an American citizen. So therefore, he could not go to any of these other countries. They wouldn't allow him. Americans can go anywhere to any country. But the third world countries, they do not allow them to go in every country, if y'all don't know that. Well, when we first come back, because he had gotten his degree in chemical engineering, what do you think I would have married and went through all that hell, have an auction, putting my mom in a nursing home? Would I have done that for someone that was going to be a stock boy in a convenience store? I don't think so. No. Why? Why would I? Why would I? Now, I seen what looked like that degree. It was originally in German, and I saw it translated into Arabic, and then I saw it translated into English so that it could be put with his information to come to this country. So I know there was a degree, but he never once went to work with that degree. Not once. Never once interviewed. Never once tried. But our plans were, what he told me when we got here, that we would go to New Orleans and he'd try to get something in offshore, because that they make really good money, and they hire chemical engineers. Well, that's what I thought was going to take place. You see what took place. At first, this man who had supposedly a chemical engineering degree worked landscaping jobs, mowing yards for $5 an hour. Nobody would pay you more than that. And then I started buying things so that he could get into the second-hand business, kind of like what we're doing now. And he liked that. Then my cousin worked up with the bank where she worked for him to have a cleaning contract with the bank. Well, he did that at least a year, if maybe not 2 years. And then one of the girls that worked there said she was afraid to be in the bank with him. Now, let me tell you, this is a little short, 5'4" man. Beside me, he made me look like a giant, and I'm not but 5'10". He's a little old thing. And this woman, who was as tall as me, was claiming she was afraid of this man. I couldn't see that. It was just somebody else wanted the contract for the cleaning. And then from that, he went to work in a convenience store. So I did not plan on any of this happening. I did not plan on any of this happening. But every time we would make plans to go to New Orleans, the people who owned the convenience store would give him a raise. Give him a raise. Give him a raise. And then he got in with them, and then they started having babies and all that, and he claimed that's whenever he decided he wanted children, but he never spoke to me about it. I had offered when we first came here to adopt, and I was in my late 40s, but I offered to raise a child if he adopted one or had a surrogate, because I knew that if he would pick a surrogate that was from Latin descent, she would look like an Arab, and it would, would look like their people. When he put that to his mama said that was not allowed. That was not allowed. That was haram. Haram. Not allowed. It was against Islam to do a surrogate. But you could have them to marry someone that they don't know, they don't like, they don't love, just to have babies. Well, that's what she decided she was going to do. After his father was killed in a car wreck, she started getting him back over there, and that's what she did. She found him another wife. But of course, that one could not get pregnant. He had problems, sexual problems, and I guess she had some problems, so they didn't have any children. But during the time, my mother-in-law and his second wife got into a fist fight. So there was a divorce. She got sent back to Palestine. She did what I wanted her to do. Then he married a Bedouin woman. And if you know what a Bedouin is, those nomad people that, live in tents, ride the camels, go from place to place. So I figured, she'd be happy with anything. But I've got 3 children now, and I cannot, for the world of myself, be happy for them. I tried to. I was pretty good on the first one, and I was okay on the second one. But then when he threw the third one in on me, I said, I'll bet so off. I can't deal with this anymore. Don't you ever speak to me again. Don't send another picture of a baby to me again. I did not sign up for any of this shit. So, y'all see where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And what time is it? Oh, it's already 25 minutes. I got to shut up.